Team, welcome back. Today I sit down with Elliot Froidevaux, who is a high-level runner and an even better run coach. If you, like me, are on a bit of a run hype right now, then this is an episode you 100% have to listen to. It's of all the running podcasts I've ever done, this has got to be up there with the best I've ever done. So if you want to learn about how to be a better runner, to avoid all the common mistakes, give this episode a listen. Elliot, welcome to the podcast, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here. Reason being, this is the second time that I've asked you to be in this podcast. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. You and I, we've never actually met in person. No. I had a client, Rob Naylor, coached him for many, many years, an old rugby teammate as well. He went on this crazy adventure to decide to become an ultra marathon runner. Yeah. And has done many of them. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to be as a part of his coaching team. And I don't know if Rob's ever told you this, but the story was that obviously it was myself and Rob working together as a team. Now, I understand strength and conditioning, I would say, very well. And I think, when someone participates in new sport, it's a matter of just understanding what the demands of that sport are, and then understanding, okay, this athlete is where they are at now. This is what they're trying to get good at. Where are the weakest points? And let's just strengthen those things.
Sure.
However, ultra endurance running is not a forte of mine. I've never really participated in it myself. So I think I felt quite disconnected from the start, because it's like, I don't really know how this feels and what one's going through in the preparation and the actual execution of a race. So with regards to Rob's training, what was happening is that he was doing all these crazy events and was, for a lot of them, not finishing, right? So he was pulling out and was kind of scratching his head, like, what's going on? So, we would look at it from a strength and conditioning standpoint and say, okay, well, maybe these are the weak I'm confident these are the weak points. We got to build these things back up. And I would keep on saying to Rob, I think you need to get a running coach. I said, I'm not saying that you don't know what you're doing, because, you've done this for a really long time. But, in the same way that I'm looking after your strength and conditioning work, I think you should have someone that's really specialized in the field of running. I think that's your missing piece right now. And Rob, he's a stubborn Aussie, and we battled on this for multiple years. And I think there was a breaking point. I can't remember when it was. It might have been UTMB Thailand. We went to Chiang Mai together, and he wasn't happy with his placing. And I think that was a breaking point for him. And kind of out of thin air, because I didn't really know too many people in the coaching space, you came along. So we set up a WhatsApp group where we were just basically trying to work as a three. You were looking after the run stuff, doing some really cool assessments. I was looking after gym-based training, and Rob was kind of the middleman. And I was just really, really impressed with just your approach.
Oh, thank you.
It was really easy to collaborate with you, and straight away I knew, like, okay, this is a guy that's gonna help Rob. And it was really great for me as well, because I was actually getting to learn from you as well, and it helped me kind of upskill my ability to work with that type of athlete. So I remember asking you, like, I got to get this guy on the podcast. I think you were going through some big transitions with work at the time. Yeah. So long story short, I'm stoked to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Yeah, thank you.
So Elliot, what's your story? Like, I know you're doing some competitive running now, but you're also very, very involved in the coaching space. Take me back as far as you want to go.
Well, as far as I can go, I was, I grew up in Hong Kong. So I've been in Hong Kong pretty much all my life. Before being a coach, I was in manufacturing. So I spent my whole working life until I switched manufacturing products out of China. So that was my work. Before that, I never ran. I rarely ran. I started running pretty late in life. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. I wasn't very good at it to start with. And on top of that, when I was young, I had a lot of asthma. So I had issues that I just couldn't run past, 100 meters or so. But what happened was, as time goes by, you have a family, you build a family. And I said to myself, okay, I wasn't particularly fit then. I said, okay, I want to start getting fit. So I started to play squash. I was playing at the football club. And I'm one of these people, I love projects. I have no problem starting from the beginning, but I love to grow as a person, as an athlete. So I gave myself a target. I said 5 years, I want to become, I want to be in the Division 3 in squash. So I worked from Division 15 and progressively Division 10, Division 5, and so on and so forth. And then I got into Division 3. But the problem was that I was fit, but I wasn't quite as fit as I could be, and I was struggling to win my matches. So I said to myself, okay, what do I need to do to get fit? So I started to do interval training. So I did interval training, and then that interval training became a slightly longer interval training. And then from there, I started to appreciate going on trails, and bit by bit, I went from longer to longer to longer to longer. And what happened was I met a lot of people along the way. I love to communicate with people. I love to talk to people. So I wasn't afraid to kind of explain to people what my training was like, my successes and many failures. I had many failures along the way. But I gave myself a target. Afterwards, I switched from a target from squash to a target for running. And again, I used that same passion project kind of concept to push myself to really and document all the training that I was doing and the failures and so on, and getting as much information out of people as I could. And long story short, that experience that has come from just learning about, running, about the whole ins and outs of ultra running, then have led me to become more experienced. And then I said to myself, well, what if I decided to, become a coach, try to bring back some of that knowledge to people, and that's how it started. So it started initially very small, and then I built kind of a base of a few runners that I was coaching. I learned more and more. I got more and more certifications. I got more and more knowledge, and then I switched from one life that was manufacturing to suddenly saying, I'm going to leave everything behind, and I'm just going to try my luck in this new space, which is running. It's my passion project. I'm passionate about it, and then I said, you know what? I had the support from my wife. My kids were on board, and I said, let's go. And it's here you go, Elliot 2.0. And it's interesting because as you get older, you tend to steer away from dramatic change. And in my sense, in my way, it was completely the opposite, where I said, let's go for the uncertain. Let's hope for the best. And plan A is plan A. There's no plan B. And whatever happens, happens. And I'm really glad I made that switch.
We've had a lot of people on this podcast who have been, they're either at a crossroads where they're stuck in a job they don't want to do, and they're dreaming of like moving into the health and wellness space in some way, shape, or form. Or we had a lot of people like you who made that transition. So I want to dig into this a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Could you just give me some like timelines here? Like, how old were you when you actually decided, okay, manufacturing, we're done, I'm moving into coaching?
So for manufacturing, I bear in mind I was doing this for 28 years. So a long, I started 20. So I overlapped for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Because I needed to have that confidence that what I was doing was the right decision. It was going to be the right decision. But I knew probably 10 years prior that this wasn't where I wanted to go for my future. I felt that I needed to switch. But the problem is I just didn't know what.
Yeah.
When I met running, because running is my second wife, I really fell in love with it. And then I realized that this is what I wanted to do. This was my passion. And it's a place where you can do anything you want when it comes to running. You can go fast, you can go slow, you can go long, you can go short, you can go with people, you can go alone, you can go at night, you can go during the day. You can test yourself against other people. You can choose to test yourself, against the elements. There's no limits as to what running can provide. So I think for me, it's a happy place. It's always been a happy place. And it's kind of the place where, from work, where I when I struggled at work, or when I had a bad day, I would go for a run. I'd go out in the mountains and just look around and just be on my own. And I thought it was really special. And I think that's why, for me, some people say your job should never be a passion. It should be, kind of or your business should not be a passion. but I disagree. I think it should be.
Me too.
Yeah. So that's it. But I started late in life running. Some people would say I'm still in the honeymoon phase. I like to think that I'm not. Um, but it's an ongoing love. It's changed a bit compared to before. Before it was a little bit more about myself, and now it's really about the runners I coach. Do I care whether I finish a race or not? I don't have the same grit that I did, because I'm kind of looking at them. I'm looking at them, and that's what makes it for me exciting. It's really so the love for the sport has changed a little bit, but the love is still very much there. And I think that yeah, it's great. It's a great sport. But yeah, so coming back, I'd say that there was maybe a 2-year overlap between my job and then deciding once and for all to stop. So there was a bit of experience there, and I also took the opportunity to study, to certify myself, because ultimately it's one thing to have experience, which is of course very important, but you have to kind of put that to some kind of structure, which is what I did, and I think that was very useful. So yeah.
Let's talk about I want to know a little bit about your running.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot about coaching today.
Sure.
But with your own running, like, where is that taking you to? Like, what kind of distances are you running? What have you accomplished? What are some of the biggest races you've done? And what's your running looking like now?
Yeah. So my running, like it looks now, it might not be as sexy as it used to be. For me, when like I said, I give myself a project and I aim for it.
And have you always been like that, Elliot?
Yeah,
You're a big goal setting guy.
Yeah, I'm very much project guy. In my job, I was a project. I was doing projects, and I love troubleshooting. I love problem solving. That's what I love, and that's why ultra running is all about problem solving.
Yeah.
It's about identifying the issues and dealing with them. But I'd say, sorry, the question is, I got lost.
Yeah, your own running, like what does that look like?
So the first project. So of course I started with short, and then I built up. I probably built up a bit too fast, got injured in the process, learned the hard way. That's all good. But one thing that I really set my eyes on was the four trails, the Hong Kong four trails.
Yeah.
So the Hong Kong four trails, for people who don't know, but I think now most people know, because
I just watched the documentary.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way,
yeah,
you know Robin Lee, who directed that?
Yeah.
One of his first ever videos, because myself and Robin used to play rugby together.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to take you off your sidetrack, off your tangent. But one of his first videos, when he said he wants to get into videography, was actually shooting one of our fitness sessions, I think in 2012, I think
amazing.
it was. And so me watching Four Trails and then all the awards and accolades that it won was just like mental.
Awesome.
Mental for me.
And congratulations to him. He
Yeah,
really
what a
deserved-
legend.
Absolutely.
So cool.
Absolutely. So I gave myself, so my brother-in-law, who's a runner, he's done a fair few Hong Kong Trail Walker events, 100Ks. He told me about this challenge in Hong Kong, the four trails. And, running the four trails of Hong Kong, the four main trails of Hong Kong, it's 298K, about 14,000 meters of vert, and all of that basically on your own during the whole time you're on the trail, and with very minimal support and less aids. And he told me about that, and he was explaining to me. And as soon as he told me that, it felt just like when I met my wife for the first time. It was love at first sight. Bang, same thing. I got straight in, and I said, this is what I want to do. So I gave myself 5 years, and I said,
wow,
in 2022, I'm going to be at the start line of this particular race or challenge. And so I trained, and I had plenty of failures. I failed so many times. My stomach, I had so many issues. But again, I went, and again and again. And then ultimately, every single time I failed, you had this community that was constantly, reassuring me, come on, Elliot, you can, continue pushing. You're going to get there. You're going to find that click that's going to make you a stronger ultra runner, and you're going to be able to do more and more. And yeah, so I trained. I ran as much as I could. I strength trained as much as I could at home. And then on February 2022, I was in the start line of the Hong Kong Four Trails, and that was my, it was the turning point, without question, the turning point of my life.
Why? What was the turning point?
Just the experience. It was spectacular.
And how did that change? How did that change your life or your mindset towards life, maybe?
I think it was the fact that I realized that I could do things, crazy things,
Yeah.
outrageous or extraordinary things, even though I'm not an extraordinary person. I'm just a standard, guy. I'm just, a normal guy. I don't pretend to be a strong athlete, a fast athlete. I'm just a regular Joe. And to do such an extraordinary thing and to actually I survived, was for me, one of the most, one of the most beautiful experiences of my life.
Mate, you actually give me goosebumps right now because
Oh, you get emotional. I get
yeah,
emotional from it still.
because watching the documentary, I was getting very emotional.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I mean, what are the statistics on how many people who start 4 trails actually finish it?
I don't know. I don't
But
really.
there's
look
not
at
many.
things. Yeah, I think you're probably maybe a 50. I mean, to finish is a different story. So finish, you need to be within 60 hours.
Yeah,
To survive, you need to be
survive.
within
Sorry,
72 hours.
that's right.
I think last year there was maybe, I don't remember, one or two finishers only
Yeah,
out of maybe 15. Survivors, you'll get more.
yeah.
But yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy challenge.
Elliot, tell me. So at the start of that 5 years, when you said, okay, in 5 years' time, 2022, I'm going to be on that start line.
Yeah.
So basically, you have 5 years to get to a point where you can basically run 200 and what's that?
98.
298
Well, I got
kilometers.
lost, so it's 306.
Okay, let's call it 300 kilometers, right? And it's on the trot. Like you're not going home and
No.
getting a nice cooked meal. Like you are out
No.
on the trails by
Sure.
yourself night and day. Where were you at? Like what kind of distances were you able to hit at that, 5 years prior to the 4 trails?
So I think 5 years before I was running, I don't know, maybe I was running 50K weeks.
Okay.
I wasn't doing that much.
Yeah.
And then as I built up towards the year leading to, I did most of my weeks were 100 plus.
And why did you pick 5 years? Like, or is this you're just a 5 year guy?
I'm a 5 year guy.
I can sense that.
I'm a 5 year guy. That's how I do things. Yeah.
Okay, so because here's the thing, in speaking to Rob about this conversation,
Yeah.
one of the things he said is that Elliot is very humble and he will downplay what he's able to do as an athlete.
Okay.
And so they think that I saw a photo of you kissing the post box, and I immediately thought, okay, the Hong Kong 4 trails, that's where I've seen that, but I didn't piece the two together. So I think for like a mere mortal like myself, I have massive respect for the things that you're doing and able to still do. It was really crazy. And me going to Chamonix for the very first time and watching the UTMB totally changed my perspective and appreciation for what ultra endurance athletes can do. Team, I want to quickly interrupt this episode to give a little shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. This little journal has made such a massive, profound impact on my life since I started using it. When I started using it, I actually didn't know that it was backed by neuroscience, but now it totally makes sense. This has brought a ton of gratitude to my life. It keeps me on track and focused on the things I need to do day to day and brings a lot of context as to how each day fits within the greater week and the greater month. So if you, like me, really care about trying to be a high performer and want to do everything you can to make that happen, I cannot recommend this journal enough. Use our discount code, The Process, to grab yours today.
I tell you one thing. Rob, I like coaching Rob a lot because he's a stubborn old man, just like myself. And, he tries, he's not afraid to fail because that's what ultra running is. I mean, the numbers are so big. I mean, if you go in thinking you're going to succeed, well, you're kind of going in with the wrong frame of mind. I think it's important to say, I'm going to really give it everything I got, but it's uncertain.
There's no guarantees.
There's no guarantees. With the weather, injuries, anything can happen. It's not like running a 5K or a 10K or even a marathon or half marathon. There you can almost guarantee you're going to finish. Okay, even if you decide to walk, it's going to take you a couple of hours, but generally, unless you get cut off, you're going to finish. There, the challenges are huge. But really, like for example, this year, I'm so proud to actually say that I coached the runner who finished dead fucking last at UTMB. So the one who finished the last, because there was no one behind him, but there were so many people who didn't finish, but he managed to run for 47 hours.
Wow.
And just, hallucinating, going through some really tough times and just gritting it out and feeling strong. And I think that's just in itself is amazing. So yeah, so you just realize just how much, you know, you get back from this kind of coaching. I think it's great.
Can you tell me about like the mental challenges?
Oh,
Like for people like me who've never, you know, gone beyond 15 kilometers
sure.
of running non-stop, like what, yeah, I watched Four Trails
Yeah.
and then, you know, I'm seeing, you know, what's his name, the older guy.
No, Will.
Yeah, Will's hallucinating and like tripping over and
But
like,
he looks like that. Even
he's
in
kind of
real
like that
life.
all
I
the
mean,
time.
even
Right.
when he's in suit and tie, he looks.
Yeah. But I think,
he's gonna hate me for that.
yeah, I would love to know, like, talk me through it. Like, what, maybe just for you, firstly, and like your journey going from, you know, 50K weeks to 100 plus K to actually doing 300 kilometers non-stop. Like, what are the mental challenges that take place in an ultra endurance race?
Well, so the first one is just trying to. The first thing you need to do with these kind of races is if you look at the enormity of it, you're probably making a mistake because it's just too big. So you need to learn how to break things down.
Yeah.
If you break it down, then you just do step by step. So imagine you just, you know, saying, okay, I'll do my first marathon.
Yeah.
And then you take your first marathon, then you say, okay, I've done a marathon. I'm not going to look at the amount of marathons I still have left, but I did my first marathon. Let's focus on the second, and so on. So it's super important to be methodical in everything that you do when it comes to these kind of things. But ultimately, over time, you know, you start to fatigue. You start to fatigue physically. You start to feel it after 50K. Generally, a lot of it is becoming mental. As much as you're fit, after 50K, everything starts. Mental side becomes more and more important. The next thing is also you start to feel your stomach. In many cases, people have GI distress. GI distress is one of the biggest causes of DNF.
Yeah.
DNF is did not finish, because what happens is that everything is easy for a few hours, 3, 4, 6, even 6 hours, 8 hours. Generally, you know, you don't have to eat too much if you're quite slow. You know, your stomach will hold on for as long as possible. But there comes a point where your body's telling you there's a problem.
Yeah.
And once that happens, then not only do you feel tired, you're starting to get lethargic, you're starting to get tired, and you know, you're starting to think, oh, you know, this is going to be a long grind. Your stomach acts up. You start to get sick. You start to lose energy. You start to really feel terrible. Then you start to fall in what they call a pain cave. And it gets extremely testing as to why you are here in the first place. Why am I doing this? I could just, and especially Hong Kong is a great place to quit. You can quit anywhere in Hong Kong. You can be in a taxi, you can be home in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's so difficult to just continue. The way out is just right there. You can just take that way out. So you know, you have that aspect. And then the next thing you can, you know, your body starts to hurt. So you start to go from just being tired to hurting. You can start to feel, you know, chafing in places that you never thought you could chafe. You start to get, you know, soreness, swelling, all kinds of things that can happen. And then the next thing is sleep deprived. So you have absolutely no time to sleep in these kind of things. You might sleep maybe 9 minutes here, 5 minutes here, but ultimately you're not getting your 8 hours of sleep. So you're just exhausted, and, you know, you start to see things, and, you know, it gets all a bit loopy. And then you have to think, why am I here? Again, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Is it really something I want to do? And it really tests you in every fiber of your being. You're just, you know, being tested. And if you're not, a lot of people say it's you need to run with your heart, not with your brain to a certain degree, and then ultimately you have to run with your heart. If your heart tells you you're going to finish, then you're going to finish, unless you get injured or you get cut off or this kind of thing. But
so can I ask you, when you did the 4 trails, and you're in those, like, in the depths of asking yourself, why the hell am I doing this? What was your why?
So, you know, it's interesting because at the time I was being coached by an online coach, so I was learning as well as I went, and we had I was running my first the McLehose Trail. I did well. I finished quick, so I was on target for 60 hours. I was feeling good, and then on the Wilson Trail I got lost, and I got lost for such a stupid reason. I decided I had a problem with my headlamp, and the watch was telling me I was on track, and I was, because it was only one track, but I went back on my steps. So I actually went back 2 hour, almost 1 hour back, and then another hour forward. Until before that, I didn't know. And then I met one of the runners, and then the runner told me, "Oh, Elliot, you're going the wrong way. You need to come back." And it really broke me. But one thing that my coach told me, which I thought it was really, really good, he told me, you train to be on that course for 60 hours. So be on that course for 60 hours. Don't, start complaining or whatever after 20 hours. Just continue. You've got 40 hours to go. So that was the turning point. That's why I said to myself, okay, so I'm here for 60 hours. I'm here to enjoy myself. So let's enjoy myself.
Whether I make it or not.
Whether I make it or not. So the mindset was very different. The mindset was very different because I didn't go in thinking, okay, I thought to myself, well, maybe 60 hours, breaking 60 is not going to happen. But I promised myself I wanted to be here for 60. So let me experience 60 hours on the Hong Kong, on the 4 trails. And I think that was the key moment. And then from there, it was surprisingly easy. I finished my last, well, it wasn't easy. The Hong Kong trail was terrible, but the Lantau trail was wonderful. And I loved it. You're on the top of Lantau Peak, you still have one more peak to go. And you think to yourself, who would have thought that this guy who had asthma when he was a kid could do this? Yeah, great.
Do you feel that when you finish these like monumental events, like, do you have this feeling that the bar has to keep on going up?
No, yeah. So that's the thing. I'm some point, yes, but I think at some point it's just getting a little bit much. I had signed up, actually, for a 500K race between Oslo and Bergen last year. And then I realized that it was conflicting with my wife's wedding anniversary, 20 years, and my daughter's 18th and 16th. So I was like, okay, maybe I better cancel that one. But I think, I do think that the races now are getting extremely long. Whether it's an ultra, even backyard challenges now, people running up to 110 hours, it's just getting a bit, for me, I think, I'm happy to do 100 mile. 100 miles is the distance that I like to do because it really tests you more so than 100K. So 100 miles is a good distance. I enjoy 100 miles, though I would still like to do Hong Kong Trail one more time as kind of a last salute to it, if I could, because I tried again in 2023. This time I went with a mindset to try to beat 60. And there I went hard on the training. I was running a lot, and I was running 160 to 200K weeks, and it was just a lot. And I think one, I went in just burnt out, and two, my immune system was low, and I got COVID the week before, and that pretty much, even though I started and I did 120K, but my body was just crying for me to stop. And when I did stop, then it took me a couple months to recover from that one. Just I was properly drained.
That was actually gonna be my next question, is like the rebound. The time taken between finishing one of these races. 'Cause I think the important thing, especially with like the really ultra, the very long stuff, when we're going over, I mean, maybe our definition of long is different, but
sure.
When we're getting over 100Ks,
you start to,
you're training, like, I think an important thing is that you're training is you're not doing 100Ks in a session, right?
No,
we're looking at accumulation of that volume over, multiple days. And so race day itself, because I think this is something that people in our space, if we want to train for a 5K run, then we're going to, training up to 5K and doing that multiple times a week is not too challenging.
No.
Right? Because it's a distance that, you're kind of done in 30, 40 minutes, hopefully shorter than that for a lot of the higher level people.
Sure.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is just how demanding an actual race is itself. You can put in all this training where you're accumulating the volume, but then having to do that all in one go is just something totally different.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I think we all know that the better you prepare for a race, the better you prepare, the faster the bounce back post race.
Sure, absolutely.
But with these 150 plus kilometer races, like, typically what kind of like bounce backs are we looking at when you're talking like the everyday person who's not a professional runner, and maybe they're doing their first ultra marathon? Like, typically how long are they is it taking them to get back to feeling good?
Sure. So if you're going to do a 50K, because obviously if you're going to do your first ultra, you shouldn't start with 100K or 100 miles. Yeah,
Yeah.
you should start with a 50K. I think realistically, I would say 3 weeks. I would the first week I would just take it real slow, recover slowly. You know, some walking, some active recovery. You could start jogging slowly, maybe towards the end of the week, but it would be a 30-minute run, maybe something like that. Second week, you start to build a little bit more, but the idea is that you've been training so hard.
Yeah.
You need to give yourself time to recover. You can't just be on the whole time. You need to have these off moments. And also the thing is when you start to do ultras, what happens is the shock on the system is quite brutal. And there comes a point where you swell up. And the swelling actually works in your favor in the sense that it actually holds everything together.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to, the swelling starts to go, there's a much higher risk of you getting injured. So you have a higher risk of getting injured after your race than you do actually during your race. So that's why it's super important to give people time to recover, just to kind of let things settle, things kind of tighten up again, just to avoid you from going, and hurting yourself. So that's on the physical side. Now, the mental side is another aspect, which a lot of people forget, is, we think that, you do an ultra, you can do an ultra every week. And there was a time when I could do an ultra every week. But there comes a point where it's just, you're kind of burning bridges. And it takes a lot of time. And these efforts like these 150K or these 300K, you might recover within a month physically. But mentally, it could take you years, or it could take you a year, because you just don't have the same drive, or you just might feel lethargic. I had somebody, for example, who finished UTA, Ultra Trail Australia, and that was in May, if I remember correctly. But she did the 100 miles. She's only just trying now. She's starting to enjoy running again now, because the training process, the training was already so long. It was such a commitment. And then the race itself was such a commitment. And then finally, when she finished, it was you're so high up, and then suddenly, what next?
Yeah.
And that in itself is one of the biggest, the lengthiest parts of recovery is actually the mental side, I find, for these kind of races, rather than, a 5K race. The physical side will be much more important, because you can pull something, because you're pushing much harder. In this case, it's really more mental. And, you can also talk physiological as well. That's also another aspect of it that can take a while to fix.
So knowing that the mental recovery post race is, potentially the hardest part of bouncing back, what, like you as a coach who are working with lots of people who are kind of embarking on this challenge, because you have this reputation now of being kind of the guy to go to here in Hong Kong when it comes to these kind of races. Like, what is your advice? What advice are you giving these guys to basically help them try and navigate those post race blues and the mental challenges that come with it?
So I always try to tell them to go and enjoy themselves, just relax, take it easy.
But can I ask you something on that, Elliot? Because that's always a tough one, isn't it? Because I think we all have our own definition of what enjoyment is. You got some people where enjoyment is just winning, and if you're not winning, then it's not enjoyable.
True.
So like,
some people like that,
like break that down for me, like this concept of enjoyment.
You mean post or?
Okay, so you're talking about training post.
Yeah, so I'm talking post. So
just
on that topic, I just think that obviously you want them to find time away from running.
Yeah.
But you don't want them to be too far away from running, because ultimately they're going to start to feel a void, and you need to fill that void, but you need to just give them a little bit of time to enjoy other things and to spend time with for example, their loved ones and something like that. Because a lot of people sometimes in these sports are prepared to give up a lot, including their relationships, maybe not give up, but to put relationships aside, to put their work aside, to put their goals aside, their plans aside for this particular race. So I think it's good to give them that feeling that they can go back to that. And even if it means, and sometimes when it comes to certain training or some training, you, for example, lifestyle training, you don't want to really move them away from that because it's hard to get back in. But in the case of running, I think it's super important to have those off moments, to just kind of detox or cleanse yourself and then start again and really feel like you got that itch to want to try again and to train again, because the commitment is huge.
A lot of people, I certainly know, having worked with a lot of athletes, especially when they love it, and especially when in the earlier stages of this new journey,
Yeah.
the concept of taking time away, they really struggle with.
Yeah, of course.
And I think one of the big fears is, I'm going to lose everything.
Yeah.
All that work that I put in, if you're telling me, Elliot, to stop running, I'm going to lose all my fitness.
Yeah,
what are the like physiological, like, how debunk that myth? Like, do we lose fitness? Do we lose running fitness by not running for 2 weeks? Like,
no.
What are we actually talking about?
No, you don't lose fitness. I mean, you can gain that fitness back very, very quickly. What you do is you give your body time to recover. So that's what you want. If you're constantly pounding, ultimately your muscle fibers just can't, they break down, but they don't actually rebuild.
Yeah.
And all these kind of things. So you actually need to give yourself time to recover. And I think I was one of those guys. I would run, run because I was convinced that this is what I had to do. But you realize that one run session is not going to make a difference. It's going to make absolutely no difference to your training
in the grand scheme.
How many runs scheme of things. And I think a lot of people forget, or they don't know, that recovery should be part of your training. It should be viewed as a training session, because it's just as important as doing, for example, an easy run, a junk miles. Junk miles, they're nice because it allows you to focus on your form, focus on just detoxing or enjoying yourself if you want. But ultimately,
what do we mean by junk miles, Elliot?
Oh, junk miles, it means that it's, for example, easy run. Run, you do a 45-minute or 1 hour run at a certain pace, a conversational pace. It's good. It's good to have. But recovery is just as good as well, if not better, because when it comes to training, what's useful is you need to do your high intensity without question. You need to do your long runs. These are the two that really count. But the easy runs are probably not as important, but they're good to have because it builds consistency. It builds consistency in your training, and so it's good and also it's very good if you need to just cleanse, to detox. If you need to, some people, they say, look, I'm really struggling at work, for example, or I need time for myself. Then go run.
Go and do it.
Yeah, go and do it. But it's not a necessity as such, and I don't think I use it primarily for people when I want them to learn how to run properly, to focus on activate on muscle. That we can talk about that later. But that's what I think junk miles are good for. Other than that,
they can actually be pushing back your recovery sometimes as
well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think we see that a lot, in the CrossFit space. This concept of active recovery days, where people feel like it's a necessity. They have to do it. They can't just sit at home or just have a normal day of work. They got to get in and they got to sit on the bike. And I think we always try and say, listen, like, we still have to understand that there is work being done. There's energy being expended. There's fuel being used. You're still asking your body. So this active recovery session that people have this idea that it's going to speed up my recovery by doing it. In most cases, it actually doesn't.
No,
it's actually going to probably slow you down. But if it makes you feel good for all the, psychological reasons, and, it can be great for shifting lymph and just moving blood around the body, which could aid things long term, can help with DOMs and stuff like that. But I think it's really nice hearing you say that, that it's like, and I think, calling him junk miles, it's like maybe not really contributing to the overall goal of what you're working for.
Yeah, true.
But you still got to be just conscious of it.
Yeah.
Love it.
No.
Let's talk about that then.
Okay.
Let's talk about the form part. You just said, you mentioned that you like to use junk miles as a chance to work on a runner's form.
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the thing is, when you do junk miles, usually you do short. Okay, I prescribe maybe 45 minutes.
Which is like relatively speaking.
No, but I mean, but 45 minutes to an hour. And in some cases, it could be 30 minutes, could be 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It really depends on the athlete that you train and, that person's time, but also the ability or the fitness level. So what I like to do is I'm very much into form because I believe that if you run in a non-efficient way, then you're making it harder for yourself to get from point A to point B. So form is key, okay? And a lot of people, in just the way you live, just only work with certain muscle groups. And they forget that there's plenty of muscles that can do the job, but they only focus on one time. And one of them in particular is the quad. Okay, so the quad is, for most people, it's the overriding, the winner. Okay, they just use the quads, the quads, the quads. But running is actually all about using your glutes, you know, activating your hamstrings in the right way. Your side glutes are super important as well. Your calves are very important, and your feet. Okay, a lot of people have the big muscles covered, but they forget about the small muscles as well, and that's where running really kind of beats up a lot of the athletes, because it always finds the weakest spot and it will always target that. And ultimately, you can have the strongest quads and etc. But if you don't have strong feet to go with it, then ultimately you will get injured, and you will always get injured one way or the other, because you're as strong as your weakest link, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So this is obviously really hard because we're just talking about this.
Yeah.
And obviously you can probably envision what we're talking about when you're looking at someone run. I can imagine you can probably just look at someone on a treadmill and know straight away and pick out things very, very quickly. But if you were to be, this is a challenge, if you were to be able to describe like what's good running form, and I guess this is obviously dependent if we're going uphill, downhill, flats, etc.
Well, let's assume we're doing flat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So for me, it's about running tall. Okay. So a lot of people, you could see they're not running tall. They run kind of in a C cup, or C shape. Okay. You can see that their upper trunk is way too forward. Many times they overstride. Many times you can see when they land, their knees are quite bent. So that means that they're kind of stacking, or they're kind of, compressing.
Yeah.
And by compressing means that you're simply doing more lunges and more squats, you know what I mean? So when it comes to running, you don't want to be doing lunges all the time, because if you do lunges for 100K, you're going to be absolutely shattered. So all these kind of things as to how your form is and how you stand tall, how you activate, for example, your glutes, which a lot of people just don't know how to activate their glutes. But the glutes is a very big part of the running form, because it stabilizes the frame, makes you taller, makes you absorb all the impacts that you get from, the return of once you hit the ground. So there's a lot of these muscles. The same with the calves. People forget, and the spring, the Achilles, they forget what it's about. So they land very heavy, and they compress, and all that over time just beats you up. And running is not about one movement. It doesn't, it's only body weight, so it's not that heavy. But ultimately, again and again and again and again, and that repetition that ultimately will get you injured or get you overly tired and so on. So the form, again, you have form when you're going downhill, form when you're going up. We understand there's plenty of things to look at. But when it comes to running, you can see, many times people have very weak glutes, side glutes, for example, and then you see a lot of the knee going in. So then the frame is collapsing immediately. And then once the frame collapses, there's no energy return. If there's no energy return, then on one side you're losing performance, and on the other hand, you're just, kind of waiting to injure yourself at one point or the other.
Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm just thinking about my own running form.
You're squeezing your bum now.
And I'm thinking like, which bucket would I fall into? I feel like I would be a little bit more hunched.
Okay.
I feel like I would be over. And I think my wife always says I run like a rugby player.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think a lot of rugby players, when you look at them run, they all kind of run the same way. Like your shoulders are internally rotated, like traps are elevated. You're leaning forward a lot. And I haven't really seen myself run, but I envision that's probably what I would look like. And the next thing
you should come, and I would be happy to
say the next thing I need
run assessment on you.
I actually definitely need to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'd actually really like to do this, because I just love learning about this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so so we talked about form. I think everyone's listening to this and probably envision kind of what we're talking about. And I can already envision, when I'm going for my runs and I can see those guys coming the other way or running past me.
Yeah.
You just know, you can just see, you don't need to be running expert when you're like, that guy just looks effortless, or that girl just looks like, that just looks very easy.
Yeah, of course, you do have people who just look naturally, they're like runners. Yeah, but you don't I'm not saying that everybody should look like that.
Yeah.
But because at the end of the day, we're all different, and we can't expect everybody to be the same. But there's certain kind of benchmarks you need to meet, certain things you need to meet that will at least give you the opportunity to be a faster runner, a more responsive runner, a more self-preserved runner, I guess, a more resilient runner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting to kind of get into like, you're starting to talk about muscles, like we're talking about abductors, side glutes,
Yeah.
quads, glutes, hamstrings. When we started working together, or at least communicating, working with Rob,
Yeah.
who's now your client,
Yeah.
you had taken him through an assessment of some sort. I think you'd done some form of gait analysis.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And I
And
think
then we did a maximal strength test as well.
that's
And
right.
then we did mobility test, which
Okay,
wasn't his forte.
so let's talk about this then. You know,
Okay.
if you've got a runner and you want to basically run a set of assessments to try and get all the essential information that you need to basically say, okay, let's start working on
Sure.
X, Y, Z. What are you assessing?
So what we do first is at Joint Dynamics, we assess 3 things. One, we check the gait. Okay, so we do a gait analysis. So usually you do that on a treadmill. So we obviously put pods on.
Now, is this a power generated treadmill, or is this a curve? Is this
This is power generated.
Got it. Do
So
you prefer that?
Yeah, I just generally don't get me wrong, I'm not much of an indoor runner. So
Yeah.
I like to run outside.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I'm old school, just go with the
prefer
power.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And sorry, just before we move on that, like, do you notice differences in I mean, I know there are differences in running. Obviously, like stride length is shorter, striking.
Yeah,
but what are some of the things you see?
But it's a good reference still. It's a good reference.
Yeah.
There are some slight differences, but generally I think it's pretty accurate. I think it's pretty accurate.
Okay, sorry to
and
derail
at least
you.
for the purpose of what you look at you'll look at the bigger picture, and there'll be some noticeable signs that you would see whether you're on the road or whether you're on a treadmill.
Yeah.
The fine details at the end of the day don't necessarily make as much. They're not as important. You see what I mean? In this case, really, it's about the bigger or the more noticeable
Yes.
points. So what we do is we put people on treadmills. We don't run them for a long time, but we put pods, and the pods give us data. At the same time, obviously we have experience. This is what we do day in, day out. So there's a lot of things that we can see that the pods would not necessarily bring up. And that's the kind of the experience side of it. So especially on the upper trunk, and also, we do a lot of visual kind of videography, if you wish, to be able to spot the kind of the things that we should correct or we should address. So we do that. The second thing is we test the maximum strength. So the reason why we test maximum strength is because the shock is immediate. So if the shock is immediate, the muscle reacts immediately. So everything that's endurance, that's a different story. I'm not going to run with somebody for 5 hours to test their endurance. But on the maximum strength, we can have a good idea of how they land and whether the muscles can sustain the impact and their weight.
So what is the maximum strength test?
So it's short and sharp. So it's as hard as you can for a few seconds. So we do all the muscle groups related to running. So we do lower limb. I don't touch, if you have anything on the upper body, we don't usually do.
Yeah.
But in our case, for runners, we just focus on lower limb. So we do a lot with, obviously anterior.
So are you doing like leg extensions, hamstring curls?
Correct,
Okay, so like you're basically isolating the muscles.
Correct.
Okay,
correct. So we have a good idea of what is what. And then we do mobility. So we also do mobility to check to see, if there's...
Now, what are we looking for specifically in mobility? Like, what do you want to see?
So the key for me, of course, hips. If your hips are not, if you cannot, rotate your hips externally, it's very hard to use your glutes. So that obviously is important. And the other thing is really your Achilles health.
Yeah.
So we focus on these things. If you have no mobility in your feet, then odds are you're just running and you're just stomping and stomping and stomping, and there's no spring.
Yeah.
What I like to say to clients, and it might not, I'm not sure if it's a coaching term, but I like to think of us as just like a building in Japan. So you have a very strong frame, okay, because you need the frame to sustain earthquakes and so on, but you have springs at the bottom. So imagine that your springs are your feet, and the rest of you is just your frame, and that in itself will absorb shock, and it will avoid from the little bolts to come undone. So this is really what you're trying to create as a runner. You want to create that strong frame, and you want to have those nimble or springy feet of yours.
So when you're assessing mobility of the feet, like what are you looking at here? Elliot? Are you looking, is like more mobility generally good?
So more mobility is good. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
we're looking for like as much range of motion really
yeah,
as possible.
yeah. Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
guessing like when I look at the foot, we're looking at toes. We're
Toes.
looking at the actual like arch in the foot as well.
So that's another thing that you see through running. For example, you can
Mm.
see somebody's collapsing, whether they're using their toes, whether they're not. There's all these kind of things that make,
They all matter.
That it all matter to keep, because if you're collapsing from the ground up, then already there's a problem. And then some people collapse from the knees, but usually if you collapse from the knees is because you're collapsing from somewhere.
Yeah.
At 2 points. So the knees is just a bit of a dumb joint,
Yeah,
it goes
it's
front
the
and back.
middleman.
If it goes to the side, then okay, then we need to adjust. So really what we focus on is, where is the problem coming from? It could come from both, and depending on the runners. But you can see a lot of people who are, for example, who do CrossFit, or people who do high rocks, they have very, very strong, muscle groups. The big muscle groups are
Yeah.
strong, but their feet are usually quite weak,
Yeah.
because they don't train these kind of muscles.
No, we basically do skipping and that's about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Box
exactly.
jumps,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is like
yeah.
a much slower
Yeah,
cadence.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff that, when people come to see us, for example, then we're very specific to running, and we really look at all the little bits and bobs that make you a runner, that make you a resilient runner, because like I said, running can injure you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't care too much about who you are. Or what you've done. It's if you have a weak arch,
Yeah.
which many people do, especially now with the kind of shoes that you see on the market, that's bound to give you all kinds of issues, and you see people with all kinds of tendinopathies because of it.
So let's just talk about the shoes then very quickly.
Yeah.
Like what do you like in shoes and what do you not like in shoes?
So I'm a shoe geek.
Nice.
I love shoes. I love to
When
buy
you
shoes.
see me wearing Vivos right now, how does that make you feel?
So being in Vivos for just daily walking.
By the way,
and
this
everything.
is designed to be a running shoe. I've never run in them. I wouldn't dare, but
So-
what are your thoughts?
So a good friend of mine
Yeah.
runs in. He does 200 miles races in
Barefoots.
5 mil sandals.
Damn.
Okay, so if you
You can handle it.
if you can handle it, that's great.
Yeah.
Most people cannot. So I think walking with barefoot, doing exercises at the gym, I think that's quite good in the sense that it has a pretty wide toe box, and it allows you to really splay your toes,
Yeah.
to have stability, so that you really feel like you're working that big toe of yours, that pinky and that heel. So that's good. But most people just don't have enough training or enough adaptation to deal with the shocks that come with barefoot running, and
Yeah.
especially barefoot running on road. I mean, that's just asking for problems.
Yeah.
So I would tell you that, let's be realistic. We are, not like we were the ancestors.
Yeah.
So let's just be a little bit more careful and more mindful
we
of
have
ourselves.
evolved to have nice big
Yeah.
soles
So
under our
I would
feet.
say just, and of course a lot of people, they go straight into barefoot running or barefoot shoes, and they haven't adapted
Yeah.
to lengthen their Achilles, and then they get Achilles tendinopathy.
Yeah.
So I used to run with barefoot shoes, but then again, or barefoot, or rather zero drop shoes.
Yeah.
But I was running a lot, and I was strong. So I'm not quite sure that.
How do you feel about carbon plate shoes?
So again, I love shoes. So my wife tells me all
Because
the time,
right
stop
now,
buying shoes.
because right now the craze for the non-running crowd is like, if you're gonna run, you have to have carbon plates in your shoes.
So carbon plated shoes, I would tell you, for carbon plate shoes, you have a carbon plate shoes on race day. It would be stupid not to, because you know what? If you're going to be racing a marathon, get the fastest shoe you can possibly find and go for it. Okay, give it your best. You've been working hard. You've been training hard for this. Don't go out with your daily trainer that that has 1,000K on it. Some people do, but if you can get yourself a good pair of shoes and you have the budget for it, go for it. I think you will actually gain time. Okay, they've been tested that you can gain 4%, and I think one other shoe now, which I won't name, but actually is probably a bit more. So that's great. You take 4% on a marathon. That's a huge amount. The problem that I have with these plates is that they're very stiff. So that means the shoe itself is extremely stiff.
Yeah.
So you're loading yourself much more than you would otherwise when you're toeing off. Okay. And that in itself is going to affect your Achilles.
So when you say loading, it's basically because the load is not being spread amongst the whole foot.
It's all on your toes, and it basically will go on your toes and on your heel.
Got it.
So strong heels, strong toes, you know,
You can handle it.
yeah. But most people don't have that problem. They are not like that. So most people have weak feet. So if you have weak feet, then you're kind of putting yourself at risk. So if you're gonna do a race, you know what? I would use it. I would say, you know what? Whatever I can get an advantage of, use it. But if you are in the situation where you're training, daily training, you need to have something that will not aggravate, or you know, and these shoes don't necessarily make you stronger. It doesn't make your feet stronger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a training tool to use every single day, like don't become overly reliant on the carbon plates. Yeah.
No,
make sure you're building up strength in your feet through other means. Maybe it's in the gym, but it's also wearing a shoe that's making your foot work.
Sure.
And building up the volume appropriately.
Sure.
But on race day, use it, because I mean,
but I stress race day on road. If I don't recommend race day carbon shoes for trail. I think it's the carbon is a very stiff material, and if you don't have strong ankles, I mean, you see people, you know, the top athletes, they are very nimble on their feet.
Yeah,
they're light, they're extremely powerful, extremely strong. They've been training all their lives for this. It's a different story. They can handle it. But us mere mortals, it's not quite the same. So we have to be careful. And of course, on top of that, for example, you know, I'm not 65 kilos. So that also plays a big part, because then there's so much more shock, so much more loading. You know, as you hit a rock, you can, you know, you start to swerve to the right, swerve to the left, and there's a much more impact on your
weight masses. That was one of the things that blew me away when I went to my first UTMB as a spectator. I was part of the sport team. Was just how small the top runners were. Yeah, like there's nothing on them. Like, tiny.
We had this. I had exactly that same thought when I was waiting for one of my two of my athletes at Champelac in Switzerland along, you know, because obviously Mont Blanc is you're doing France, Switzerland, Italy. And I was there, and you could see them. You could almost fit them in a box. They were identical in terms of height, in terms of weight, because that's the kind of the efficient profile of a runner for these particular races. Yeah, not all of them, but you know, a majority of them. At least the top 10 were in that particular.
Okay, so let's go back to the assessment, right? We've done a gait analysis, we've done a mobility assessment, and we've actually done some strength assessments. So now you basically got a pretty complete picture. Sure. You've broken things down in isolation from a strength and mobility perspective, and you've actually seen them run. Yeah. Okay, so I guess the conversation I like to have now is like just the role of gym-based training. We'll call it gym-based training. Sure. Call it strength conditioning, but the role of gym-based training for runners, specifically endurance runners. Yeah. So let's say this case study, you've taken through the assessment. They've got perfect run form. There's no mobility restrictions, and they passed with flying colors on all your strength assessments. Okay. So you basically got no red flags now. Okay. What are we looking at? Like if you were going to build, you know, the gym-based training for this athlete who, let's say, is preparing for 100K, and they've already done 100Ks before, so it's not their first 100K. Yeah. Let's say I'm realizing how many things we need to specify, but we're like 6 months out from a race. Okay. What kind of stuff do you want to see this athlete working on in the gym?
Okay, so obviously it's all about performance. So the person is strong, the athlete is strong. Like you said, the form, everything is strong. So what you want to do now is that you're using strength training to complement the running. So it's not taking the same amount of importance as you would if you were injury prone. Yeah. Or if you had some imbalances and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay? Or so potentially you're a really long way away from a competition.
Yeah. So what you're doing there is really, obviously what you want to be doing at gym work is the stabilization is always going to be super important. Like, you talk about NASM, you talk about stability, you talk about, muscle endurance, you talk about hypertrophy, maximum strength, and power. Obviously, when it comes to running, we skip the whole hypertrophy. Okay, that we try to avoid. The muscle endurance, anyway, you get it from running. So we focus on three things. So it will always be part of the template. Stabilization, you can always be stronger in your feet, because ultimately, if you're going to run 100K, there's always a risk of you getting injured. You want to get as much return of energy as you can, so you want to keep those feet nice and strong. And then maximum strength, you can always be stronger.
Yeah.
Okay. And then power, you can always be more powerful. So ultimately, we would complement the training, or the training for the 100K in terms of running, with the strength training. But like I said, it would not be specific to one type of injury or one type of imbalance.
Yeah.
And it would be more general, but it would be still quite aggressive, but it would be focused more, I think, more on performance. So it would be more plyometrics, more explosive power, that kind of thing, to really, get that person to be, because 100K still is pretty, nowadays, unfortunately, it's pretty short. So,
That's crazy.
People now run 100K in less than 10 hours.
Yeah.
And that's with 5,000, 6,000 meters of vert.
Yeah.
So you look at the speed, it's like running 100K at 16 kilometers per hour. I mean, it's
Crazy.
On flat. It's pretty intense. So that's the kind of gold standard that you are at. Of course, we're not all like that, but just to give you some idea that generally, you for these kind of people who are extremely aiming for time, or for podiums, then you need to really push them in terms of plyometrics and so on.
When you look at the average runner, right? So maybe these are not people working with coaches, but they're like, they're clocking in some good mileage every week. Maybe they're looking to do an ultra. What is of the strength continuum, that we just talked about, muscle endurance, we've got stability, and we've got strength and power, the four things that you're really focusing on. Which of those four do you think people neglect the most?
Oh, I think it's without question, it's maximal strength. Because power, you get to a certain degree with your high intensity. Okay, you get it with high intensity for sure. Muscle endurance, you go and run. Stability, because you're running on single leg, you do get stability to a certain degree. But maximum
But you're
power,
pretty much only in a straight line there, right?
Yeah, true. But I mean, you're still spending some time on one leg at some point. Not everybody, but most people do. But I think it's really maximum strength. And also, we forget one thing when it comes to maximum strength, or all these kind of things. It's just the neuromuscular fitness part of it, because a lot of people could be strong, just don't know how to use it. So I think, I think a lot of people, but when it comes back to these people, I think maximum strength is something that you just can't do unless you really lift heavy. So that itself is, most people don't do that. They take a kettlebell and they think that's enough, but it doesn't give you the adaptations to be.
So a lot of people, I think a lot of people also say, well, I'm prepping to run 100K, or 50, or even just a marathon. Why do I need to be strong? Like, I'm moving at a slow pace. Like, I'm not sprinting. Why do I need to be strong? So what's your answer to that?
It's a good question. It's a good question. And, subject to time, subject to budget, you can argue that you don't want to. You have no injuries. Why should I do that? Most people, when they tell me I have no injuries, why should I do that, ultimately come back at some point and say, I would like to do strength training, because they realize just the importance of it. I think especially now, more and more. And on top of that, when you talk about ultra runners, you talk more and more about people who are slightly older. Okay. And the older we get, the most important part, if there was anything to focus on when it comes to fitness, would be stability and maximum and strength. Okay. If you have strength and stability, odds are you're not going to fall. If you're not going to fall, then you're not going to break yourself. And I think that's the most important. So
without question, if you do fall, like with strength training, building bone density,
and
muscle, you're more resilient.
Correct.
If you do.
Correct. And also, when you're building, you're not building muscle mass, because obviously you lose muscle mass as you get, but as long as that muscle is there to absorb the shock, that's going to make a big difference in terms of the actual impact when you fall. But there's always going to be somebody who's going to say, I'm fine. Why should I do it? Okay. Yes, true. But ultimately, not all of them come back, but some do.
And in terms of exercise selection, So we're basically we're saying, okay, in the gym we've got to be making sure we're working on top end strength.
Yeah.
What exercises, like specifically, I know this is very general. Remember, we're using our avatar who has no red flags,
Yeah.
so they can do everything. What would be that if you had to pick three? I know
Yeah.
these questions are hard, but you had to pick three exercises that you were just going to do for the rest of your life, and you being the client that has no red flags, which would they be if you wanted to work on maximal strength for a runner?
So for maximum, for me, there's one machine I love. It's the leg press. I just love it.
Nice.
And I love it because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
You know, you can lift so much, so heavy,
Safe.
and safely.
Yeah.
That's the most important. And I think there's you know, as much as the rack is good, it's very good. You do have that element of risk.
Yes.
You know, even like deadlifts and things like that, I don't even touch that when it comes to running. I don't even touch that. But I do think that I think the leg press is the big winner for me. The fact that you can do it you can focus more on your quads, you can focus more on your glutes, you can do single leg and do double leg. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But I think you can really, first of all, make you feel good because you're like, damn, I can lift heavy.
Yeah.
And two, it actually makes a difference. So for me, that's a big one.
So that's number one on Elliot's list, leg press.
So for me, in terms of exercises, I think one thing that we completely neglect is the feet. So I know it might seem boring.
No, I like it.
But I think the feet are everything. I think that big toe is such a big player in the toe off, is such a big player in the running form. And a lot of people just don't know about it.
What's your favorite toe exercise?
Well, you know, simple things. I mean, of course, you've got all these exercises where you do like just actually staying on heel up and just staying on single leg.
It's an isometric.
And just holding that position. And so we do isometric calf raises as well. But just being like that and just not even holding on to everything and just trying to be stable. And I think that's one of the key points because you really focus on pushing that big toe in and really stabilizing that frame of yours. So that's that. And the third one actually is either a bench or whatever, because I think a bench you can do so much with it, but it's actually a sit to stand. Simple sit to stand, single leg. That's it. Because it allows you to activate progressively different muscles throughout the whole lifting and sitting process. And suddenly you're like, okay, so you can see a lot of people, they just don't know when you tell them to, okay, now you're going to get up and you're going to use the glute. And they say, how do I do that? Because they're in a sit down position. So they almost have to poke themselves. So I tell them poke, so that they can actually feel where it is and know how to use it. So I think that's one of the basic ones. Of course, there's so many different exercises. And at one point you need to also make things a little bit interesting for the runner to give them all different exercises. But that's a good one, I think, at least at the beginning stage for people to understand how to activate their glutes because they just never activate their glutes. So yeah, so these are the three. I have a fourth one though. It's just because it's also my favorite. Is I like to do the banded fire hydrant. Yeah. So just working on that, the glutes. Yeah. Because obviously there's a lot of people who forget, and especially when you do trail, that if you don't have that stability at the mid trunk, I guess, the mid range, then mid frame, then what happens is that you lose. First of all, you lose a lot of energy, and on top of that, you have a higher risk of rolling your ankle, of you know, and also what happens is that you don't bounce as much to the next step because you're losing that. You know, you're losing some time to bounce to the next side. So that in itself, I think is super important. So
basically training like the external rotations of the hip, right? The ability to bring it out.
Yeah, I think these especially for trail running. For road running, not as important, though it's a stabilizer, so it's super important still. But I think for trail running in particular, I think it's extremely important.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when I think about the strength and conditioning side of it, you raised a lot of really good points. Like there are so many nuances we haven't really discussed. Like how far out from competition are you? Is this person taking an off season? Are they constantly racing all year? Because that's going to make a massive difference as well, right? You don't really have these opportunities to really build really big foundations. I think a way that I always look at it with sports is, the further out I am from wherever that athlete is trying to peak for, the more maybe varied and the less the training is looking like the actual sport itself. So, I mean, I always think about it from a strength and conditioning side. It's like, if we can make a muscle really strong in every single position, we've just got way more strength to call upon when we need to execute whatever the task is, right? So, when I think about running, I think, you're going to have trail runners are going up steps, typically like they're lengthening their glutes a lot more.
Sure.
So really build really strong behinds.
Yeah, very true.
Whereas road runners, the leg is not lifting anywhere near as much, generally speaking. So the glutes are not lengthened as much. So I love things like RDLs if I'm like Romanian deadlifts, if I'm for someone who has competence and is able to execute them with good things, because there's just like, the glutes often don't get lengthened, especially in a bilateral, right? Two-legged, everything is so single-legged. So I 100% agree with all the exercises you've chosen. Leg press, really, really good option, especially with like older populations.
Yeah.
People don't have big training backgrounds. You don't want to waste time trying to teach someone just how to squat with the bar on their back.
Exactly,
if you can get the same return on investment with a machine that does a lot of the stabilizing for you, then that's amazing. But then I think, the further I get away from the competition, then I want to make sure I just want to build a really strong lower body. So I want to build adductors, glutes, hip flexors, quads.
Yeah, true. As we get closer to race day, then we start to focus much more on, power. Then we ship to power. Then, by that time the body is strong, and then we focus on power, and then much more plyometrics and so on and so forth, and be a little bit more springy towards the end of your training block.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm loving this case study stuff with you. Okay. So I want to propose one more case study for you before we wrap this up.
Okay.
And the case study is me.
Oh. Okay.
So hypothetically, this isn't a goal right now, although you made me think a lot about running just in this conversation already. But okay. So I want to know, very generally speaking, you don't have to go into too much detail. I'm like you, Elliot, and I've decided in 1 year's time, I want to run my first 100-kilometer race.
Good for you.
On the flat. I'm not saying it, but this is case study.
Flat is not easy.
Okay, so we're gonna go on the flat just so you got something to work with. Now, context. I'm only willing to run twice a week. Okay. So I got 1 year, and right now, I can run 10 kilometers. I could probably run 20 half marathon right now, and I'd probably say it would be a sub 6-minute pace. Okay, that's kind of just to give you an idea of probably where my running's at right now.
Yeah.
In a week, I'm probably running right now between 10 to 15K.
Okay.
What does that process look like? So to get me from where I'm at right now to 100K in a year, firstly, is that possible? And okay, sorry, stipulation. I don't want to walk the 100K. I want to run. I want to run that 100K. So I guess my first question is that possible?
Everything's possible.
Okay.
So first thing, I'm a firm believer that, everything's possible.
Yeah.
And if you don't try, you won't know.
Yeah. Love it.
One thing's for sure, I do think that first you have a strong fitness background. So you're not coming in without fitness.
Yeah.
So you're strongly built. Okay. So that in itself is a great starting point. I do think that there comes a point where 10K a week or 15K a week is not enough.
Yeah.
At least if you're going to give respect to the race. I'm not saying you don't respect it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to give it a certain amount of training. Now, obviously that as you want to build, if you want to run the whole 100K, then one would definitely be one of these runs would be a long run, and the other one would slowly be an interval run. So your interval run would be at the beginning would be short and sharp because it's all fun, and then progressively you would be doing much more threshold work, and then you would be pushing harder for that particular run. Of course, the fact you're going to run twice, I would maximize the time you run for as long as possible. But that would we would build towards. Okay, so I wouldn't suddenly go and say.
What would you say is the peak week? Like, what's the biggest week of running you think I might do over the next year to prep me for that 100K?
If you're running twice a week.
Yeah, that's it. Just twice a week.
Okay, so twice a week, I wouldn't go to you and say, okay, you're going to run a 50K, because I don't think it makes sense. Okay, you can't just run a 50K every week. You're going to injure yourself. But your long run would be much more towards negative split. So I would force you to run faster your second part than your first, because it forces you to run on tired legs.
Yeah.
In some cases, what I would even do is I would actually bring that session of intensity, I would actually bring it ahead. So it would force you to run the next day with tired legs. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I still think you need to do more than just 2 days a week.
But I'm saying no.
I know you're
Elliot.
stubborn. You're stubborn.
Listen,
and you're still young.
I'm saying this is in this context. I'm like, sorry, Elliot. Like life does not allow me to run more than twice a week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So like I said, I think that you would have to do a threshold session, progressively becoming a threshold session, and a long run. But I don't think you should go beyond. Initially, I would say you start with maybe run half marathon distance, which is a healthy distance to run. Towards the end, then we would definitely have to take that up. But I don't think you would go beyond 40. I don't think so. I think after that,
in one go.
In one go. I think after that, it starts to have diminishing returns. And even then, 40 is already a lot. And especially if you run on road. So a lot of people think, oh, run 40, 50K a week. You know, it beats you up.
Yeah.
It beats you up properly. And then it doesn't necessarily work for you.
So my question is, if I want to get to, I'm going to do the race at 100K.
Yeah.
You're saying that in my biggest week, we're probably going to get me to do 140K. What about that other session? I would love to know, like, what's my biggest total weekly volume that you think you're still confident to say, I'm still confident you can finish the 100K.
Yeah, I do think, because I think you're, you know, if you give yourself that target, I think you're stubborn.
Yeah.
And I think you need to be stubborn to do 100K.
Yeah, you said the mind's going to get you through the second.
The mind's going to get you through the second part. So, and even if you don't run it, you're probably still going to go and finish it. Okay. If that's really what your target is, or if your goal is.
Yeah.
But I don't think, usually you probably stretch the intensity workout to, you know, a solid 60 minutes of hard effort is of actually a hard effort.
Yeah.
Okay. Not 60 minutes, including time wasted, or not time wasted, but rest.
Yeah.
Is already pretty solid on top of your long run. I would stick to something like that. So you're really in that threshold zone, followed by your long run, and your long run would definitely be at the beginning would be a steady run, but progressively would be negative splits. And even you could add, you know, some not strides, but you'd add some threshold finish, some intervals there as well, to just add difficulty towards the latter part of the long run.
This has been so good. I'm always love hearing someone speak about something they clearly are very passionate about and they know a lot about. And I'm going to take you up on that offer. I'm going to come in. I'd love to do an assessment.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm sure I would learn a lot about my body, and always good to have another set of eyes. We have a closing tradition on this podcast. And the question is, what is a quote or a mantra that resonates with you right now?
So, you know, it's an interesting one, because it's hard. I have one on my website, and it says something like, I don't even remember what it says. It's a good one though. It says it's not about the race, it's about the journey that gets you to the start line.
Nice.
So that's one, and I resonate with that one too. But I think, based on what has happened in the last couple of years for me, I think what really resonates the fact that, you know what, at one point, if you don't try, you don't know. And I think that's really the one that I resonate with. I do think that you need to be respectful of what you are expecting to, or what you're planning to do, because it's one thing to say it, but you need to kind of back it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do think that, you know what, if you don't know, if you don't try, you won't know. And I think failure is, I failed so many things. I failed so many times, but I still get up and I still go and I still try again, because I think that sometimes I say, well, you know what, let's try again.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you know, it's what makes it exciting. It's what keeps me going. So I think, just don't be afraid to try. I think that's what makes life fun, at least. At least it makes you feel, you know, compelling. It makes it feel fulfilling. Does that make sense?
Love it.
Okay.
Couldn't resonate more. Couldn't agree more.
Okay.
Elliot, where can people find out more about you?
So, you know, I work at Joint Dynamics. jointdynamics.com.hk. So I'm a run specialist there. So again, I do run assessments. We do lactate, VO2 max. We do strength training. We do rehabilitation training as well, for people who do have injuries. And then, of course, I do online as well. So I have a website called ultra-elliot.run. So there I do online coaching. So that's where I can be found. So online coaching or for for Join Dynamics.
Well, Elliot, it's been a pleasure to
Same.
finally meet you.
Thank you.
I've loved the conversation.
And I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to working with you more in the future.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you.
Until next time, buddy. Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.